One thing I talk about online a lot is that I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, which part of that is that I have something called amenorrhea, where my period can either be consistent or it won't be at all. My period will peace out for 6 months. Right now, my body's really doing its thing. Right now, my body is really on track. It's staying consistent. It's doing what it needs to do. But I am finding with that, I am having ovulation moments. And I don't know if any other woman relates to this, but the last couple months, my mind, probably in what they call limerence, is like grabbing on to a man I don't know. And it's just holding on for dear life for a couple days. And it's like a fog. I'm thinking about, oh, what do I want to talk about in the podcast? And it's like probably that man you're in love with. And I'm like, I don't know him. And logically, I know I don't know him at all. But emotionally, it feels very real. It's the same thing as when you're like just about to have your period and you know that everybody around you isn't trying to annoy you more than usual, but in your heart, it feels so real. You logically know no one is doing anything to purposefully hurt your feelings more or make you feel bad or make you feel like you're not doing enough. But there is something about the emotions that come with a period and like the intense parts of the cycle where it just feels so real, even though there's no logical grounding to them. A few months ago, it was Joe Jonas, okay? Probably November. Was Joe Jonas. I could not get enough of him. I've never been a Joe girl. I like the Jonas Brothers, but I've never had a favorite Jonas brother that I feel so connected to. And for 3 full days, I was like, will I be the next Mrs. Joe Jonas? And then it's like a fog lifts. And all of a sudden I was like, who is that? I don't know who that is. It just leaves. Then December was KJ Appa. But this is the embarrassing part. Specifically as Mr. Fantasy, not as KJ Appa himself. I was like, Archie from Riverdale, I don't care. Mr. Fantasy, I'm down with. Once again, the fog lifted. January, my brain has decided Joe Keery is the way to go. The man loves his family. He writes incredible lyrics. And he's also a great singer and actor. So why would I complain about that? But I guarantee you, in the next few days, I won't remember a thing about him. I'm in La La Land right now. And that brings me to the theme of our podcast this week, bad habits. I just discovered I'd never put lip gloss on, and I was naked, so I had to go take care of that. This is the time of year where resolutions go to die. Your motivation has faded, the weather's getting worse, everything's kind of slowed down, and it was fun at first, at least for people who celebrate Christmas. I would assume for people who celebrate other holidays too, where the slowdown is really nice and intentional. And it's about celebrating the present and being in the moment. And then all the holidays pass and you get to January and it's like, okay, now it's just slow. Now it's just slow. There's no social events. Everything is slowed down. We're all in our homes. Nobody wants to leave. And I just want to say that this isn't people being lazy. And it's not people being incapable of making changes. I think there are real factors that influence people to be motivated to continue to accomplish their goals or pursue their dreams. And then there are situations that happen that create uncertainty, that create discouragement. There are people who are genuinely affected by lack of sunlight or lack of being able to be more physical. So before we get into this isn't about trying harder. It's not about having shame. What this episode is really about is distinguishing what we can change and what we can affect and what is out of our control. And the things that are out of our control, letting them be, letting them go, and the things that are in our control, taking ownership of them and making sure that we're at least doing those things. A few weights that you currently might be carrying in this season. We have a horrible economy, lots of inflation, a bad job market. There are many of us who are talented and experienced and educated and have unique skill sets. And there's something incredibly humbling about being in a position like I have been the last year where I was in California and I knew what skills I had. I knew what I could bring to the table. I knew I'd be good at a job and I knew I'd be passionate about it, and I just couldn't even get my foot in the door. And even when it came to things like working retail or working sales or working at a coffee shop or being a waitress, I could not get a call back. And I know that's not unique for many people right now. And then there's people who have been in their jobs forever, they have skeleton staff, which is where they basically break their staff down to the bones and they overwork the people who are still employed. So then they feel like they have to be grateful because everybody else is out of work, but then the job is slowly killing them because they're doing the job of 3 people. Maybe within that structure as well, you're watching people get promoted and you know that they have less qualifications than you, and you know that they have less skills than you do and less knowledge about the field than you do. And it's really frustrating because you put your heart and soul into pitching yourself and it feels like a rejection. Maybe you're someone who, like me, is very single. 90% of the time you love it. You get to make your own decisions. If you make a mistake, it only affects you. If you make great strides in your work, in your personal development, you are personally celebrated and benefited from that. For all of us that are both in relationships and outside of relationships, I think that there is a tendency to compare and a tendency to feel inadequate in some way. That comparison game, it is harder for singles. We just live in a culture that really benefits and uplifts marriage and children as the ultimate thing that you can do with your life, especially for women. At the same time, I want to acknowledge that there are people who are married who feel like they're not a good enough parent, who feel like they don't have a nice enough house, they can't put their kids in the sports that they want to put them in, that they're spending too much time at work because if they don't work, then they can't afford their life, but also they feel like they're missing out on the life of their kid. I know that I have friends who feel all these things and they go online and they start comparing themselves to other people. I know I have friends who are single who go online and start comparing themselves to other people. Maybe you are someone who really wants to have a baby and you're dealing with infertility. I would love to do an episode talking about PCOS and infertility and endometriosis and all these topics from a Christian viewpoint, because I do think there have been a lot of women specifically who have been hurt by the church because the church doesn't address things like infertility, child loss, things like that. Now, I personally have not been through that route, but I've had to consider that route because of my PCOS, that I might not biologically have a child, or it might be very difficult for that to occur, and all the things my body may have to go through. Obviously, I pray that it would just be something that happens. I'm curious to know if anybody else would be interested in those subjects, any of the women, because I know I have a huge female demographic who listens to this. Another thing that's changed the last 10 years, I would say, is the housing market. I remember in 2018, I had lots of friends buying homes, investing in housing, investing in property. And now here we are 8 years later, and I don't know anyone who's able to buy a house right now. All of my friends are living multi-generationally. They either are buying a house from a parent, or they're living with an in-law or with their own parents. 40% of millennials are living with their parents. They can't live on their own, they can't afford it, or they have to have, 3+ roommates. It's a very hard housing crisis right now that can make us feel really down because we don't have our own space. Things like the podcast, for example, I have to plan out with my family because I'm living with them. So like last week, there wasn't an episode because there wasn't time for me to have my alone time with a camera and speak to it. Maybe there's also the area of faith where there are real stressors and there's a lot of things outside of your hands that you feel like God isn't giving you insight on, or there hasn't been movement in something that you've prayed for, something exciting hasn't happened in a while, and you start to feel like, what is the point? And you feel like, can I do anything about any of the stuff happening around me? Meanwhile, you're watching other people progress in whatever area means the most to you, and you just feel like you are chained down to where you are right now. And like I talked about earlier with the emotions as a woman during a period, sometimes you logically know you will not stay in this season for the rest of your life, but it feels very real in the moment, and it causes a comparison fatigue. It causes overthinking. But what I want to be careful on is acknowledging what you can control doesn't mean that you're surrendering everything that you are able to control. You don't let go of everything that you're able to control and make changes in. I'm seeing this in myself, and I had to have a very severe heart-to-heart with myself this week because discouragement has led me to a couple of different things. I'm going to list them out, and if you resonate, then this is for you too. Sedentary living. For me, it's hard to motivate myself right now to even just go do a Pilates stretch routine. It's not exciting. I feel lethargic. I don't want to get sore. I don't want to sweat. I just feel like I sit in a chair sometimes after work, especially, and I'm like, I do not want to move from this chair at all. Number 2 is doom scrolling. There is something about these stupid things. I'm holding a phone for the audio people. There's something about these stupid things that can benefit our lives so deeply and erase so much mental work from our lives, and yet we choose to doom scroll on this thing all day and get in the habit of comparison and get sucked into what we don't have. And I do it all the time. I'll go on my phone and be like, I'm going to look up trends for the coffee shop for social media. 2 hours later, I'm wondering why I don't own a home. I don't make that money. I don't get to go on these brand trips. I don't have content that's going as well as this person. All of a sudden, I find myself just being drugged down by what I'm consuming and what I'm watching. There's the tendency to check out emotionally or spiritually, if that is your thing. Instead of feeling deep depression, you're like, it's honestly better if I just feel apathy. Maybe if I don't care about anything, then I can't feel rejected, then I can't feel hurt, then I can't feel behind. Maybe if I just let life happen to me, then I won't feel all these dark, sad, hopeless feelings. Maybe I'll just be able to coast through life. And the issue is that, in my experience, there becomes a point in that process where you go from protecting yourself to hurting yourself. And it's a very thin line that you don't catch when you're going over it. The final thing that this can lead to is quiet resentment. I know I'm in a bad place on a certain subject when I cannot celebrate somebody else succeeding in that area. I had a friend in LA and I was looking for work for a long time. And this friend had a part-time job and got a second part-time job. And I was sitting there with no part-time job, and I didn't have it within me to celebrate them. Out here, outwardly, I'm so happy for you. You deserve it, because logically I knew that they did. Logically I knew that they deserved that job, but emotionally I was very upset with the fact that they didn't pass that job on to me. And I was also upset with the Lord, because I'm like, I'm sitting here for months praying about this. They haven't prayed once about a job, and you gave them a second job. And my resentment in that area grew, and I knew in the moment that it wasn't right to treat them that way internally. I knew it wasn't right to blame God in that eternally. And I even acknowledged maybe they needed that job. Maybe there are things they're not talking to me about financially that they're stressed about, or maybe they are praying and I just don't know about it. Maybe there is an aspect of faith that God wants me to grow in that He's not challenging them in. And so He gave them that job. I could see all these things logically across the board, but my emotions were resentment. And my emotions were frustration. I've talked a lot about comparison. Comparison also might not be something that is me against you. It might not be me looking at you getting a promotion, you progressing in a relationship status, you making a crazy amount of income. It might be me. I'm comparing myself to who I thought I would be by now. If you're not careful, you can also start comparing yourself to who you thought you wanted to be at this time, or who you thought you would be at this time, and you're not. And that is just as dangerous as comparing yourself to other people. I want to reframe the idea of bad habits really quick before we talk about what is within our control. And I want to say this: bad habits are not always something that is dramatic or destructive. It's not something that always is going to ruin your life, where you will lose a job, where you're going to lose a friendship. It's not something that has to tornado through your world for it to be a problem. It's daily choices. Oftentimes, it's small, passive, daily choices. It's these things that we choose to do when there's no reward in the moment. We know there's a greater reward and a greater trajectory, but maybe we can just let this thing go for a minute. Maybe I just will skip today, and then one day turns into 3, and then 3 days turns into 5, and the next thing you know, you haven't done it for a whole week, and you've lost your rhythm with that daily choice. These are some things that are within our control in these moments when we feel like things are out of control. There's a work ethic that you have to keep when your life is not what you dreamed it would be, and it doesn't feel inspiring and cool. If this is a documentary about your life, this is the part where you're like waiting tables and your life isn't what you dreamed it would be, but like you want to be a singer. Do you know what I I mean? This is your moment where you are Allie from Burlesque and you're like sweeping the floors, but like you sing because nobody else is in the shop. This is continuing to work hard even when life doesn't feel like how you dreamed it would. You're feeling overworked. You're feeling underpaid. Your job is not aligned at all with your long-term vision. Every creative person said, amen. All people who are creatives know exactly what I'm talking about because there are jobs that you have to take to pay the bills. The biggest piece of advice in that area I can give you is be faithful where you are, not where you want to be. I have read books where people talk about how it was in those moments, the humble moments, the unexpected, quiet seasons where people were working jobs that they never thought they would be working, and they network, not even by choice. Like some people don't even know how to network. Some people have never been taught, but they get to know someone who brought them into the world of their long-term goals. Whatever those long-term goals are, I'm talking a lot about work, obviously, but I think we can all attest to at some point in our lives, we've met someone who has changed the trajectory of our life. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're feeling like, what is even the point of getting up and going to work? What's even the point of applying to jobs? The point is that you can be faithful where you are. And if you're faithful where you are and you give your all to the job that you're in right now, when I go to the coffee shop, I give 110% to the coffee shop because I know that even if I don't meet somebody, I at least am benefiting a small business. I know when I go to that job, I have a heart for the family that owns that business, and I want them to succeed. And that right now is my mission because my long-term goals aren't being met. So when I wake up every single day, I'm thinking about the people who are coming into the coffee shop and how they might not have anyone who treats them with kindness today other than me when I take their order. And those are the types of things that I look at where I go, it's not glamorous to clean a bathroom. It's not glamorous to grind beans. It's not glamorous to take somebody's order and be in service to them. But if I'm faithful where I'm at, I cannot lose. Physical discipline. You cannot affect the weather. You cannot affect if you've had a personal injury. You cannot affect an unexpected illness. You're cold. You're unmotivated. The routine that you had in this area is now disrupted unexpectedly. Here's what I need you to do. Set a goal for how many steps you're going to walk every single day. It can be 1,000 to start. You would be surprised how many of you can make it to 1,000 steps a day if you just are intentional about it? If you are someone who is going through an autoimmune disease or you have a disability in some way and this physical aspect maybe doesn't apply to you necessarily, what are things that you can do that physically help you at least maintain where you're at? I am where I am realistically, wherever that is, and what I can do is this. I can take 1,000 steps a day. I can do 30 reps with weights. I can practice vocal exercises. If you have PT to do, you can do your PT. And just let that one simple thing be the thing that you go for every single day. Because once you're in a habit of that, you can start getting into higher levels. We're not talking about, I'm going to go run a half marathon next month. That's not happening. Let's start with small movements, because I have personally seen over and over again with family members that are older, sedentary lifestyle is never beneficial for anybody. Sitting around, watching TV, scrolling on your phone, not being in motion, it causes joint pain, it causes stiffness. They don't recover from things as quickly. For those of you who are single or those of you who are in a comparison mode, I think the biggest thing that helps me when I have moments where I feel lonely or isolated, try to find milestones in your life that don't depend on relationship status. Try to find joy in your life that isn't depending on these cultural levels up. So for me, I think about the fact that if I don't get married, all the people that I know and love from all these different groups may never meet. So things that brought me joy and that I'm going to try and get back into are things like having a birthday party. We kind of put birthday parties with kids, but I actually think adults should be more celebrated for making it through another year. And for me, I'm like, that is a time when people who I love from all different walks of my life come together. Another area that I did this was the free coffee shops that I had at my house here in Minnesota before I went to LA. I would have people over one Saturday morning a month. You could bring anybody that you wanted. So not only am I gathering people that I know and I love, and I'm celebrating time with them and reconnecting with them, but also I'm meeting new people because those people are bringing their friends. Maybe you had a job promotion. Maybe you did buy a house. Maybe you accomplished a goal on your list. A trend that I really loved at the end of this last year was, I think it's called like the celebration cake, but basically you have a cake or a dessert and you put in a little toothpick with like a goal that you accomplished this year. So this year I read the Bible every single day, or I read the Bible in a year. This year I was a great mom to my kids. This year, I finished my master's degree. This year, I ran a half marathon. I really love that trend because it shows in a friend group how various the accomplishments are. They're not dwindled down to a few things that you can do in this life. And if you don't do these few things, then you're a failure. It opened up the door to celebrating people for exactly where they were at. But I think a lot of that starts with ourselves. We don't need a trend online to tell us to do that. We have to do that within ourselves every single day. When others get something and we have not gotten something, whether it's the exact thing that they received or it's something else that we've been praying for, hoping for, trying to work towards, we need to learn how to celebrate others and not shrink ourselves. This person over here getting that part-time job didn't actually mean anything about me as a worker, but I put it in my head that it was just another thing that nobody thought about to pass on to me, and then they got it, and then God doesn't care about me because X, Y, and Z. That was me shrinking myself. Nobody thinks about me, not even God. And the reality is that person getting that job had nothing to do with how God thinks about me, my friends think about me, my family thinks about me. I struggle with that a lot, especially coming back home. My friend's husband was talking to me at church a couple weeks ago, and it just really touched my heart because he said, I just want to let you know, I really admire your faith, and I admire how you've navigated a really difficult year of unknowns and things that weren't predictable, and you continue to show up every single day and honor the Lord even when things don't make sense. And there was something in that I just needed to hear because I think I've spent a lot of the year being like, you could be doing more. You didn't accomplish anything. You didn't meet these people. You didn't do X, Y, and Z that you set out to do when you came here. And I think I just needed someone to have a moment where they're like, I really admire you and I'm really proud of you, because I just don't really think I've had that up in my own head. And I think I'm really guilty of being the person who out here I'll celebrate, but inwardly I'm really struggling to celebrate other people because I don't feel like I've had a win in a while. And I just needed someone to come to me and be like, I don't see you as a loser. I see you as a winner. And it made all the difference in my thoughts. And now when I'm struggling, especially right now, it's been really tough. I just go, this person came up to me and they said that they really admire what I've been doing. This person texted me this week and they said that they're loving the podcast. Sometimes I just feel like other people aren't seeing it. And so I'm shrinking myself because I'm not receiving that feedback that I need. And I think in the same way, if you're not in that position, maybe none of this is like super relatable to you, go to people that you love and tell them what you're proud of. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a minor thing that probably will mean the world to them. A final part of what you can control is rethinking multi-generational living. I know sometimes that's hard. We've been sold the American dream. We all get it. We all understand. Anyone who is a fully functioning adult understands. There are people who own homes and their homes are like falling apart because they were built badly. Everybody has something when it comes to the way that they're living. Some people have houses and they're stressing about their mortgage. I want you to redefine stability. For those who own homes, they think they have to do all these updates or I need to find a bigger house. And I think you need to reflect on if any of those things are true or if the way that you're living in the house that you have is good for right now. And I think for the people who are living with roommates who are driving them crazy or living with family and they didn't anticipate being in that position, I think it can be a good moment to learn how to live with other people. I think it could be a good moment of learning how to better communicate when you feel like your standards haven't been met. I think it's a good way to show grace and patience over and over and over again for people who were raised really differently than you and live really differently than you. And I think when it comes to your family, I don't think that it's a setback to live with my parents. I'm so grateful that I have a landing spot. I saw enough homeless people in California and in the Twin Cities, but really in LA, to let you know that I am not complaining about living with my parents. It's not what I envisioned for 30 years old, but I will never complain because there's people who don't have a place to land. And if I didn't have a family who would have taken me in, I would probably be living in my car in California. And I hope I never get in a position where I take that for granted. This is a strategic time to sit, reevaluate, and have a safety net that was truly given to me and I had no say in. And it's not something that is controlling me. It's something that I get to sit and make the best of. And I get more time with my family, who I love. The final area that I want to talk about that's very specific to me right now is the area of faith. I have really been struggling with the fact that I don't feel like I'm doing anything of importance in this season. And I just came out of a season that was so unstable and chaotic. I don't really know what I did back there either. I feel like I'm having a hard time processing everything from the last year. And so I'm just kind of living in this perpetual mourning spiritually. I think also the joy of coming home has worn off. And now I'm just left with where I'm at. For me, something I found that the Lord is really pointing out to me is I don't feel like I'm close to God. I feel like I go to a quiet time and I'm not really getting anything out of it. I feel like my reliance on the Lord and trust on the Lord for his provision daily has kind of waned since I came back home. I'm trying to view my relationship with God like I would a romantic relationship, in the sense that when you're dating someone or married to someone, every single day you don't feel like you're close. You don't feel like you're a team. You don't feel like you're united. Obviously, this is a little different. God's a little different. He is perfect. I'm not. So it's not two imperfect people trying to make that work. But for me, I feel like me and God are like this. I feel like he's ready to meet me wherever I'm at. And I feel like I am pulling away a little bit because I just don't really understand what's going on. And then in the process of that, I'm not really feeling passionate about getting into the word. And then on top of that, when I go to pray, I'm just getting so distracted by just random stuff. And so I feel like we're like this right now. And it's sad to me because we were like this when I was in LA. But I think when you are married to someone especially, you're not going to feel like this every day. There are couples who feel far apart. There are couples who feel disconnected because of a busy season or a work change, or they're caretaking for a parent or a child. There are moments where you just don't feel as connected, but that commitment remains. And I think that's what I've been trying to focus on, is in my control. The Lord is always committed to me. I get to choose if I'm just as committed, even when it just means that I am praying to him and having a quiet time in my living room. Nobody knows about it. Nobody sees it. It's just a recommitment daily that's between us. Sometimes God's just asking you to wake up and wrestle. Like, that's it. He's just asking you to wrestle with your faith. He's asking you to ask deep questions, to research, to have peace when you don't find the answer on day one. Sometimes he's not asking you to do all this crazy stuff. He's not asking you to move to Zimbabwe and start a ministry there. Sometimes he's asking you to stay in the Midwest and work your job and be the person of peace within your workplace, and to wake up every single day and just wrestle with your faith. Because when you, again, are in love with somebody, when you are in a relationship with someone, when you stop fighting, that's a bad thing. And I don't mean that in a toxic way. There's obviously people who fight all the time. It's super toxic. I've been in that relationship before, believe me. When you really love someone, you fight for what you have. And I think in the same way, something that we are all in control of, and sometimes we take our hands off the wheel and we go, I don't know what to do. I just don't feel connected to God. It's like, are you in every single day wrestling even when you're tired? Are you in there every single day giving your all to him wherever he has placed you? And then if he's asking you to go do something incredible or move to another country or move to another state, are you obedient? And then do you go there and do you continue to wrestle through it with him when you're in that place? Something I wanted to highlight before I wrap this up is a concept that I took on last year that I called Journey to 30. Now, you might not be 30 years old. You might not do a full personal journey, but for me, it was something where I wanted to be the best version of myself physically, emotionally, financially, and spiritually by the time I was 30. What this entailed was I had specific goals that were just daily things I was going to do, daily things I was going to work towards, even when I didn't want to, even when I was not really feeling it, even when I was feeling rejected, even when I was feeling down, even when I was feeling sick. I was going to work towards these goals on a daily level because I knew even if I didn't attain the end goal that I created in there, I knew I'd be closer to it if I made it a daily habit. And I want to encourage you, that's really what we're working for in this whole concept of bad habits. It's putting away these daily small choices that lead to a bigger picture. And you might not make it in your timeline to this goal. You might not pay off $10,000 of debt by 3 months from now. But by making changes to your finances today, you might get $3,000 down. So now you only have $7,000 of debt. Instead of, if you had made no changes, maybe you would have $9,000 left. And those are the types of things that I really want to encourage you on. Find things that you can do daily that make you 1% better. That should really be the goal. It's not, oh, if I don't run a marathon, then I just suck. It's, what can I do today physically that's realistic? Today, I can do 4,000 steps. I'm going to walk 4,000 steps. So whether that is on the treadmill, whether that's around the house, whether that's through the office, that's the kind of goal you need to be working towards. It's basically about like recommitment over starting over. One thing my friend Nikki said yesterday that impacted me was I need to get better at restarting right where I am, because we have this mindset of like, well, it's the middle of January and I let go of these goals, so I guess I'll wait till next January. It's Wednesday and I already failed this week, so I guess I'll start next Monday. You don't need to start all over. Just recommit today. Wrestle with it today. Pursue it today. You don't need to like reinvent yourself. You don't need to start all the way over. You don't need to do all of that. I really believe that your long-term outcomes are not shaped by what happens to you, but how you respond to them. And that's really what I'm trying to get at. So I want you to reflect on a couple of questions, and you can just write these down really quick. What am I blaming that is truly out of my control? That's the first thing you're going to write down. What things are out of my control, I don't have a hand in, I don't have a say in? What are things that have happened to me, whether it's in the past, right now, that are shaping who I'm becoming, and I didn't have a say in that thing? 2, where have I quietly stopped choosing discipline? In other words, what is in my control? This thing happened to me when I was 12, and it's affected my life every day since. And today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do this because I want to heal from that. I was just watching Tana Mojo's reflection on her 1 year sober video, and she was talking about how she used to drink 2 packs of beer a day. If you are someone who's there, I'm not telling you to go cold turkey. If you feel called to go cold turkey and you have the support around you to do it and the right mindset to do that, do it. If you are someone who's dealing with an addictive personality, go 1 less beer today. And then in a week from now, drop another one. And a week after that, drop another one. Those are the types of things that I'm talking about. What are things that you are in control of that you actually can change? And what have you quietly stopped choosing discipline within? The third thing, what is a habit that you are going to recommit to? Now you've reflected on these things that are outside of your control, within your control. What's one thing you're going to do? And number 4, what's a mindset or posture in your life that needs to shift? What is something that needs to change, needs to adapt for you to get a step closer to the things that you want for your life? So with all of this, I just want to end with the fact that quiet seasons still produce fruit. Faithfulness matters more right now than any boost of motivation or momentum will later. There's this old rule about investing, and it's like if you didn't start when you were 20 years old, the next best time to start is today. And I believe that for any habit that you have. And finally, because my light has died, my battery is about to die, everything's about to silently be done, I'm going to say goodbye. And I hope that this podcast episode encouraged you. I hope you got something new out of it. And I think for a season where things are really slow, things can be kind of sad or just not motivating, I hope that this was something that made you feel like it's attainable to get back on the horse and pursue this thing again. And I hope this made you feel like it is realistic for you to not have to start over, but just to start today. Thank you so much for listening to the Gratis Group Chat. I would just ask that if you're watching this on YouTube, you would subscribe to my channel and like this video. If you're on Spotify, I just ask that you would follow the Gratis Group Chat. And if you want to make comments, I would love that. I actually had a Facebook post that a couple people were commenting on last week. And although it originally started with not the best vibes, I think we turned it around because it helped me realize that I have a lot of context to my podcast episodes that people who aren't listening might not. So when I show a short clip, then I really need to have a clip that has a lot of context within it for other people to understand what's being said. Obviously, please don't come at me and be crazy, but I do want to build community. I do want to build conversation. And I just ask that if this episode influenced you at all, that you would start a conversation in the comments. And I will see you guys next week.